5. Day of Reckoning. I am wrongly judged if my love of peace and my patience are mistaken for weakness or even cowardice. I have therefore resolved to speak to Poland in the language Poland uses to us. Last night, for the first time, Polish soldiers fired on our territory. We have been returning the fire. From now on, bombs will be met with bombs. From Adolf Hitler's speech to the Reichstag on the invasion of Poland. 2 days after Hitler sent his armies into Poland, he summoned the doctor. It happened just after breakfast. Ace was finishing her coffee while the doctor read out to her gloomy bits from the papers, which were full, of course, on the news of Hitler's brilliantly successful invasion. The doctor looked up. There's a report of Hitler's speech to the Reichstag here. Apparently, he said from now on, he's just a simple soldier of Germany, and he won't take off his soldier's coat till the war is won. Bully for him, said Ace. It'll be getting pretty smelly in 6 years. It was a fine Sunday morning, and Ace was wondering whether to bother going out. She had lost her taste for sightseeing. Somehow, the sign on the bench had upset her even more than the brutality they'd seen in the streets. The doctor's gloomy pronouncements hadn't helped either. Despite the sunshine, Berlin seemed more and more like a city of ghosts. It was all the worse because the ghosts didn't know they were dead yet. She still hadn't decided what to do when Martin Bormann appeared in the doorway, quiet and deferential as ever. The Führer wishes to see you at the Chancellery, Herr Doctor. The car is waiting. Ace jumped up. Just the Herr Doctor, Fraulein, said Bormann patronisingly. These are serious affairs of state. Men's affairs. Ace drew a deep breath. Now listen, mate. Steady on, Ace, said the doctor hurriedly. Nazism equals sexism, I'm afraid. Church kitchen and kids, that's a woman's natural sphere. Isn't that right, Herr Bormann? Sorry, Ace, I'll be back as soon as I can. Better stay in the hotel. Before she could work up a proper protest, the doctor bustled the bewildered Martin Bormann out. If there was one thing Ace hated, it was being left out of things. Nobody wants me, and everyone's telling me what to do, she thought furiously. She was pacing about, trying to decide whether or not to go out, just to show them, even though she didn't really want to, when there was a discreet tap at the door. A hotel servant entered with an envelope on a silver tray. It is for the Herr Doctor. You've just missed him. He's popped down to the Chancellery to give Adolf some advice. Enjoying the man's horrified expression, Ace went on. Leave it with me. I'll see he gets it as soon as he gets back. Putting the envelope on the table, the man backed hastily from the room. Ace picked up the envelope. It was heavy and expensive looking, the kind, she imagined, that contained high-powered official invitations. It was addressed simply to the Doctor. Ace decided to open it. It might be important, in which case she could send it on to the Chancellery. Anyway, she was curious. Inside the envelope was a plain white card. On it was engraved Dr. Felix Kriegsleiter, Aryan Research Institute. Underneath was an address in a street called the Kronprinzessenstrasse. Ace turned the card over. On the back was written, I so much enjoyed our recent meeting, we have much to discuss. Do please call. Like any good tourist, Ace had bought a city map. She consulted it and discovered that the Kronprinzessenstrasse was just off the Kurfürstendamm, the long straight boulevard that ran through the heart of Berlin. And Kriegsleiter was the strange-looking man the doctor had noticed at the Nuremberg rally, the man he'd been so fascinated by at the reception afterwards. Now Kriegsleiter wanted to see the doctor. It could well be important, and the doctor might be tied up at the Chancellery all day. Ace decided it was her duty to go in his place. She could explain that the professor was tied up with old Adolf, make an appointment for some future occasion, and, at the same time, suss the bloke out. It would be great if she could hand the professor some useful info when he got back. At least she'd be doing something. Scribbling a quick note, Ace hurried from the hotel. The car screeched to a halt and the doctor and Bormann got out. Bormann looked proudly at the doctor, anticipating his awed reaction. Hitler's newly built chancellery was enormous. 2 incredibly tall columns flanked the door. Above them a huge stone eagle, wings spread wide, perched on top of a wreath embossed with a giant swastika. At the foot of each column stood a motionless SS sentry. The doctor craned his neck to peer up at the eagle. That is the most grandiose piece of architecture I have ever seen. It is perhaps a little overpowering at first, admitted Bormann, feeling guilty at even this hint of criticism. They went up a flight of steps and on through the door into a vast marble presentation hall. From there they climbed stairs to a reception room, then passed on through an enormous gallery whose shining marble floors stretched endlessly into the distance. At the end of the gallery was a handsome circular reception room, about the size of a football pitch, where a number of familiar figures were standing around in little groups, most of them engaged in serious, low-voiced conversations. Goering was there, and other top party officials. To Bormann's horror, the doctor said loudly, "You ought to run a bus service along here, or at least issue bicycles. Roller skates would be a help." Goebbels and the others looked shocked and disapproving. Goering chuckled and called, "An excellent idea, Doctor. Get onto it, will you, Martin? I'd like to see our little Heine on the roller skates." With some relief, Bormann saw that Himmler wasn't present. He crossed the reception room and showed the doctor into the Holy of Holies, the Führer's study. The doctor looked round in sheer disbelief, and Bormann could see that this time he really was impressed. The high-ceilinged room was 100 feet long and 30 feet wide. The dark red marble walls were hung with historical portraits and swastika-bearing shields. At the far end of the room was a massive mahogany desk, and in the red leather armchair behind it sat Adolf Hitler, wearing, as he had promised, a simple brown tunic, his soldier's coat. Giving the doctor a little push forward, Bormann slipped out of the room. The doctor drew a deep breath and set off on the long trek across the luxurious fitted carpet. Hitler smiled triumphantly as the doctor approached, waving him to one of the armchairs grouped round the desk. "Well, Doctor, what do you say now? It is 2 days since my armies entered Poland, and its conquest is almost complete. Yet what do the British, or the French for that matter, say or do? Nothing. Admit it, I was right, and you were wrong." The doctor sat quiet for a moment, calling on the formidable resources of his Time Lord memory. "What is the date?" he asked quietly. Adolf Hitler frowned. "September the 3rd. And the time?" Hitler glanced impatiently at a desk clock. "It is precisely 1 minute to 9. Desperately hoping that his memory and his research were both accurate, the doctor said, "Then I ask you to wait. Just that 1 minute." The next 60 seconds were the longest of the doctor's many lives. Had his unknown enemies outthought him? Was it here and now, that they had changed history, diverted the time stream? If so, he was lost, his credibility as a prophet destroyed. 9 o'clock came at last, and somewhere in the chancellery a clock began striking the hour. Before the last stroke had sounded, the distant door opened, and Ribbentrop hurried into the room. Behind him was a nervous, bespectacled little man, clutching a sheet of paper. "There is a communication from the British ambassador." He paused, flustered at the sight of the doctor. Hitler waved him forwards. "You may speak freely before Dr. Schmidt." Ribbentrop advanced, gesturing to the little man to follow him. "This is my interpreter. His name is also Schmidt, as it happens." "We are a numerous family," said the doctor gravely. "Shall I have him translate the message?" asked Ribbentrop. Hitler nodded. Then he held up his hand. "Let me play the prophet for once, Herr Doctor. Let me tell you what is in the message. It'll be a formal note of protest concerning my invasion of Poland. They will deplore, they will protest, they will whine. They will plead. But what will they do? They will do nothing. They did not fight over Czechoslovakia, and they will not fight over Poland." Ribbentrop attempted to speak. "My Führer," Hitler waved him into silence. "The message!" In a quavering voice the interpreter began to read. "I have the honour to inform you that unless not later than 11 a.m. today, September the 3rd, satisfactory assurances have been given by the German government that all German troops will be withdrawn from Poland, a state of war will exist between Great Britain and Germany as from that hour." The doctor felt a sudden wave of relief. The English had dug in their heels at last. They were going to fight. History was still on course. There was still time.